Last weekend, the best cuber in the world, YiHeng Wang, broke the 3x3 world record average, with it now being at 4.36 seconds. This was set at the Philippine Championship 2024, and his judge was Leo Borromeo, the top Filipino cuber and also just one of the top cubers in the world. And you can also thank Leo for recording this, so thank you so much. And after our breakdown of these solves, if you want to go see the full video, including the reaction to the world record, then head over there. YiHeng Wang is so good that he's still the only cuber that has been able to beat my personal best solve time, but as an official average. But the craziest part is, this isn't even crazy for him. Look at the rest of the averages he got at that competition. And if you've seen so many good averages from him lately that you're desensitized, let me put this into perspective. Only 4 people in the world have ever achieved a sub 5 3x3 average. Max Park has done it once, Ruihang has done it once, Tymon has done it 5 times over the last 2 years, and how many times has YiHeng gotten a sub 5 average? 32 times! YiHeng got it 5 times in a row before this competition, meaning that he just got it 6 times in a row. And I know some people watch him and just like to say that he just turns really fast, but in reality, his solutions are also very smart. So today we're going to break down his solves to see what he did and what we can learn from it. Special thanks to Recons or reco.nz, which has a bunch of solve reconstructions if you ever want to check it out. And thank you to Stewy for reconstructing this average. As always, I'm not just going to be looking at the moves. I'm going to be analyzing what he did, what he could have done better, what we can learn from it, his finger tricks, and much more. Let's get started. Here was the scramble for the first solve, done with white top and green front. And this was a 6.11, which is not very good by YiHeng standards and did not contribute to the average because the best solve and the worst solve in an average get removed and only the middle 3 count. But it was only not good by YiHeng standards, and you better believe that if I get a 6.11, that is probably my best solve of the day. Okay, so he did the yellow cross. YiHeng does white and yellow cross. So here we have the green piece ready to go in. Red is over here in a bad spot. Orange and blue are kind of fine here. So what you can do is put in green like this and do D. So next up, he does orange and blue by flipping it like this, putting blue in, and then putting orange in. Then when you put in red here, whenever you have this case, you have 2 options. So if you align the cross and then get this to go into the front, you can put it on the right side and then insert it like this, or you can put it on the left side and insert like this. And if you are a beginner, then hopefully you just learned something new. But if you're a lot better, then you want to plan your first pair and choose accordingly out of those 2 options, which one gives you a better first pair. So YiHeng decides to put this on the left side, not because it gives him any particular good first pair, but because on the first move, it creates this pair. So then all you have to do after the F prime, you just move these out of the way so that now you have this to start with as your first pair. Then he was tracking green and orange. So when you insert this first pair, green and orange, he did next. Personally, I think it would have been easier to go into orange blue. He probably just didn't see that yet. But at this point, I feel like you should see it. And this is where the solve started to get weird, because he didn't do this, which would have been rotationless, and instead went for red-green, which he did with 2 rotations. And he did it like this. So set them up like this and then insert. And now the orange-blue pair is in a more awkward spot than before, adding even more moves, which is just a very strange F12 overall. And then he got this OLL case, which he solved like this, which is crazy to me how many moves that is. I mean, it's really fast turn speed, but I use this or this, depending on the situation. You can watch my OLL video if you want, but he went for the super long one, which is very interesting, but you can turn really fast for this one. And then for PLL, gets a terrible case from a U2 away, pretty much the worst possible scenario. Although there is an algorithm from this angle, I guess he doesn't like it and does this one instead, which I don't like very much either. It's shorter and easier, but there's so many double moves, and so it's ultimately not even that fast. Now, I'm not just going to show what he did, I'm also going to show some analysis on alternatives he could have done. So this was the first pair that he set up, and here's where I said that I personally think this pair, orange-blue into the back, would have been better, flows better than switching hands for this one. But if you do this one, the one that I suggested, then you can still do the orange-green afterwards. It's still a good case. But there's something crazier here. So if you continue with orange-green, nothing that interesting happens. You can just do a U2 and switch to blue cross. which you should never do this. Never do this. It's cool. It's funny when this happens, but you should never do this. The funny thing is, though, the solve in the end would have actually been pretty good. Now, the next solve was amazing. It was a 3.97, best solve of the average, and it's probably not even that amazing for him. He probably gets this on the regular, but it's so cool every time we see a 3. And it's going to keep being cool until we start to see 2s. And this solve was honestly pretty easy. I wouldn't be surprised if most people do pretty much the same solution. But there are multiple options here. So for the white cross, we have green here, and red here, and blue here. And you can see that they are all lined up with their opposite color, which means if you just put them all in, then you can just deal with orange at the end. But that's not necessarily the best option because of the way that blue and orange are set up. The way that blue and orange are set up are so that if you put in blue, then orange goes to its opposite color, and this is just as good of a cross solution. So you have to look at both if you want to plan out your first pair and see which one gives you a better first pair. And before lining the cross, there are only 3 moves you have to do here, so it is actually pretty easy to plan the first pair, and turns out this and this are going to be set up. So YiHeng chose to solve those into the back later. So he started by solving the blue one and flipping orange into the other side from this angle. So that's a lot of stuff to think about, but that's the sort of thing that top cubers will think of during inspection. I'm sure he planned multiple more pairs into the future, but something important that he did was the way that he set down the cube. If you set down the cube just like this with white on the bottom, which is probably what you usually do, when you pick it up, you need to do that B2 move first in the beginning. So he actually set up the cube like this so that the B2 move is on top. That way the grip makes more sense. So that's an important thing, to make sure that your first move, if it's a flick move on either top or bottom, is at the top or bottom, not at the front or back when you set the cube down. All right, we're talking about high level stuff for such an easy scramble. Let's just do that cross. Okay, and then this one auto sets up, but it's better to do green and orange first, because if you do this one first, it will break green and orange. So we insert green and orange, and then he did red and green. There are 2 ways. You can do U2, insert into the back, or you can do U and insert into the back with R prime U2R. And I don't know why he chose this one, but ultimately this was the better option. So when you set up orange and blue, important here, don't rotate. Even though you will have to rotate for this eventually, right now it's better not to rotate, specifically because the red-blue pair sucks. So you want to put this one over here so that when you set these 2 up, you break this from the slot. So he did it like this, which is perfect. And it's extra perfect because when you then insert this all, it actually sets up red and blue. So this was an incredibly easy solve. There was pretty much, like, they were all free pairs except for one of them, which required a 3-move setup. So that's pretty much as good as it gets. OLL and PLL were also kind of easy, but there is something you can pay attention to if you want to predict the PLLs better. In this case, for this OLL, this block gets preserved. So just when you see the OLL, you also want to look at some other stuff and see if you notice when blocks get preserved and where they go. So this block actually is going to move to the back here. So you know your PLL is already going to have a block right here. And you can also do the corner permutation recognition, which is this whole other thing. But yeah, if you do this, then actually right here is when you can find out that this is a T-perm, because this block is going to go to the front right here. And with the corner permutation and like with these blocks, there's only one possibility, and this is a T-perm, which you can recognize from those 2 blocks. So if you ever wonder how pros recognize PLLs so much faster than you, it's because before they even see it, they've already reduced the possibilities. And for a lot of people, recognizing a T-perm from this side is not hard, but it's hard from this side. So if you knew there was a block at the back, you could still recognize this instantly. So yeah, there's a T-perm. When you're solving at this level, pretty much every tiny little mistake really matters, and this is something you also want to pay attention to in your own solves. In this solve, even though it was amazing, 3.97, the scramble was easy enough that I'm pretty sure he could have gotten an even better solve. And so I checked and I noticed that he actually had 2 lockups in this solve. There were 2 times when he tried to turn, but either misturned or thought he misturned. Each of these cost about 0.15 to 0.2 seconds, which means that this solve could have been as fast as like 3.6. And YiHeng's lockups are really fast. He's faster than you at everything. So if you are locking up, you may be wasting seconds on your solve. So make sure you pay attention to these whenever you get a solve that isn't very good. The third solve was a 4.48 and had a very good solution. So here is the yellow cross, yellow and blue. The blue one is already done. The orange one is lined up. The green and red don't look very great. Usually in this scenario where you have easy cross pieces and difficult cross pieces, you want to solve the difficult ones first. But in this case, as it turns out, if you just did orange first, you actually end up with a better solution for these. So here you can solve orange, and then when you solve green, that naturally sets up red. So we do this to put in green, and then red just sets up naturally. And this corner gets solved, which you can actually spot like 3 moves into the solution. You don't have to track it all the way to this point. And when a corner gets solved during the cross, if you see that during inspection, then you can make an X cross by putting the edge in as well before aligning the cross. Because once you do this, it's not that great of a case, but right here, you can take the red-blue edge and put it in here like this, R prime, U2, R. But even though that's the fastest way to put this edge in, YiHeng Wang did not do it like that because he's smarter. And he noticed there's actually 3 ways to insert this edge. And the main 2 that you want to consider, because they are just the fastest, is R prime, U2, R. And look at what that does to the red-green corner. It puts it in. The alternative is U prime, R prime, U prime, R. That puts the orange-blue corner in. And yes, that does solve it, but the other edge is in a terrible spot. So he noticed that this one's actually better. And the reason this one's better is because you're saving the red-green corner, and the red-green edge is in a great spot. So this can be a really good case that you tackle next or tackle soon, whereas saving orange-blue was not very good. So orange-blue is just in the back there, that's fine. And now we can do this and this, or this and this. And as it turns out, it doesn't really matter which one you pick. Everything just gets set up afterwards anyway. So here he did orange-green, like this, and then red-green gets set up. If you do it in a different order or in a different way, it still ends up like that. It's really cool. And then here's orange-blue going into here. Now, at this point, he did a cube rotation and then did this solution, which I think is interesting because I personally like to do this rotationless way, but I understand that I have a blindfolded bias, and that's where we do all these crazy moves. So yeah, he did the simpler option, which is rotate and do this. And then he ends up with a great OLL case, but doesn't properly take advantage of it, unfortunately. In this case, this is something that I've talked about a lot before, but whenever you get a full corners-oriented case, you can actually predict the PLL every single time. You never have to pause going into PLL. And what I mean is this. You look at this side, and you look at what PLL you have right now, these are all going to be preserved. Problem is, this one is not a PLL sticker. So the other one over here is going to move here. So if you imagine this one is red, okay, at this point, it's not that simple because for this PLL, you have to know how to recognize this PLL from this angle. But the important part is blue, orange, there's going to be a 4 checker pattern, and that is this particular G perm. So just remember, blue, orange, red, green. You do the OLL, and it's exactly that pattern. So this is a really important thing to eliminate like the entire recognition phase of PLL when you get those OLL cases. Okay, and then this is the same PLL as before. And yes, I did look at the video to see if he paused here, and he paused just a little bit. 0.1 second PLL recognition. This solve could have been 0.1 seconds faster. Get good. This solve has an incredibly interesting start because there are so many ways you could have done this cross plus first pair, and I want to show why the way he did it was actually really good, but there is something else he could have done that would have been crazier. So we're doing white cross, and blue is done. Orange and green are in a really good spot because once you align blue, you can just get them in like this. But whenever you have the situation, you can also do it mirrored. There are 2 ways you can insert these. And there's this red piece right here, but it is attached to this pair. So we're back to the start. What you need to notice is that red and green are easy, blue is easy, red needs to be done last because it is attached to this pair and there's pretty much no way to get it detached unless you do it last. So what he did was D2, and he did orange first before green. So like this. And what that did is it set up this red-blue. Now, I don't actually know if he was looking at this, but we're going to come back to this later because he broke this again right away. What he did next is what you should do in this case. With this red, there's no way you can insert it without breaking orange and blue. If you do it like that, it breaks. If you do it on this side, it breaks. So you cannot insert red right now. You need to solve orange and blue. Oh, wait, actually. Oh, that's crazy. Okay, you actually can, but yeah, I think I wouldn't think of that in the moment. Anyway, you just pick whatever way you want to solve orange blue that you like, and the way that he picked was U prime and then L, U to L prime, which immediately broke this corner with cross piece pair, but he wasn't focused on this. He was actually focused on something else, which is that this edge is solved and you can do a double X cross here by solving this corner first using keyhole. So keyhole is when you move this corner away from the slot it's at so that you can easily insert the corresponding corner and then go back. Okay, so he still hasn't solved the cross yet, but he's made this little block, which is awesome. And then he inserts this final cross piece. There are two ways. I don't know why he picked the way that he did. He did U and then inserted it over here. I think it would have probably been just as good to do it on this side. Actually, no, he's smarter than me. The reason you don't do it on this side is because now you have two pairs that need a rotation, but you do it on the left side. Okay, great, I'm learning too. All right, so he correctly picked the side to insert red from so that both final pairs are rotationless. That's awesome. Then he solved this one first, which I'm not sure I agree with. It sets up this and this at the end, like this, which is not too great of a case. I think I personally would have gone for this one first, just because I already think it's a better case, not to mention it sets up a better final case. But it doesn't really matter, it's not a big deal. Okay, so he solves this one, and then solves this one with a lot of moves, but it's really fast. And then gets this OLL again. Awesome. So here, if you want to try it, you can do the same thing. Put green over here. Unfortunately, we do have quite a difficult PLL to recognize even with green here. But the way that I do this one is if you see headlights, then this with no particular pattern is the only one that gives an A perm. So if you see no particular pattern and headlights, it's always A perm. Technically, every PLL can be recognized from two sides, but it just can be very difficult sometimes. So yeah, it's like this, and then this is a 3-corner cycle A perm. And I have been validated. He uses ring finger and then pinky for the D2. I've been called crazy so many times for doing that, but I like it more, and the best cuber in the world does it. So that makes me the second best. This solve could have gone absolutely crazy. That start that I showed you might have already seemed extremely weird, but it could have been weirder. So we're gonna start with the same thing that YiHeng did, which is D2 to solve blue, and then orange and green in this order. Now from here, if you wanted to preserve this, yes, I said I'd come back to this. If you want to preserve this, it's actually really cool. You end up with a crazy 40 move solution. So what we do here is insert the red blue just like he did, right? Because you have to insert this or else inserting this will break it. So in this case, he did L, U to L prime, but you can instead put it to the back first and then insert it like this. Now you get to preserve all this stuff. And this stuff is only good if you can figure out a good solution for the edge as well. And there is one, there is one. You just take this one, put it here like this. That looks really weird. Why do we ever do this? But then when you insert this one, boom, it all goes in like that. And that is a double X cross. You might be thinking, how is this better than what he did? It's not, because what I just showed you is the simple version. There's actually more you could have done. Okay, just so it doesn't get too convoluted, we're gonna go back to the start here and show the entire crazy 40 move solution that I found. So you move blue to here in the beginning, right? Just like he did. The beginning's all the same. Put in orange and green, but orange first. And then we solve this pair, but do it differently from what YiHeng did. So this is where it starts to get different. Put this one in like that. And now, just like I showed earlier, we put this edge in here. And here is where this probably isn't worth it unless you saw this all the way in inspection, but this pair can be solved now in just 3 moves. And you might be wondering, why are we solving this pair? Like the cross isn't even done. How is that useful? Isn't this just gonna get broken? No. Because if you've done enough random block building, you know that by putting in this cross piece like that, it doesn't affect this piece. But that's not even the end of it, because that leads to a worse solution than if you stop here and do something different as well. So we've taken a detour to solve this pair. Now we're going to take a second detour to solve this corner and put it in this slot. Remember, he keyholed this. We can still do that. You just D2 and then put this one in and then D2 again. And we've solved 3 F2L pairs. The cross isn't even done. But if you insert the final cross piece, boom, the whole thing is done. That is crazy. And the funny thing is, I don't think that was outside the realm of possibility. I think if you gave the top 100 cubers all of this scramble, I don't know, there's a chance no one does it like this, but there's a chance that somebody does it like this. Like, it's not that crazy. Okay, I'm just realizing this. The thing I showed wasn't even the 40 move solution. I messed up at some point. So instead of doing the keyhole like this, if you do it like this, then if you know the OLLCP algorithm, then you can get a PLL skip at the end. There you go, 40 move solution. I am better than YiHeng Wang, confirmed. This is the final scramble, and on the final solve, I don't know if he had calculated at this point, probably not, it's a bit too much pressure, but I calculated and he needed at least a 4.35, as in he needs 4.35 or better in order to beat the world record. And coincidentally, the best possible average he could have gotten if he got a crazy low time on the final solve is also 4.35. And here was the scramble. If you're looking at white and yellow cross in the beginning, it doesn't look necessarily amazing, but then you spot these two, and now YiHeng Wang is a happy boy, because this is really great, especially where the other edge is. And as it turns out, he got nearly his best time on this final solve. Now we're going to talk about the cross solution, but then I'm going to show how he finger tricked it, because it was really smart. So here for the cross solution, you want to have, I'm sorry, I can't find it. So red and green go in like this, and they make a little square. And then you can do this, and that sets up the edge. So now when you do this, you're going to have an X cross. And orange and blue, though, you have to do something about that first. So before you do that, you can set up orange like this. And then now orange and blue are in a great spot to go in together like that. All right, I can't write down an exact solution because I was rotating the cube all over the place. And if you would like to give it a shot, see how you could finger trick this, because it's actually not very easy. So basically pick a side you want to start by facing and pick a way to finger trick everything, okay? Anyway, if you're just here to watch, I'm going to tell you the answer. So he solved the cross kind of like facing blue. Now, typically you would want to do this like R2F to solve these two, and you'd want to face green, but it doesn't make the rest of this very good. So instead he faced blue, but not really, because when he placed the cube down, he faced yellow, and he had the cross at the back. And the reason for this I talked about earlier, see if you've learned anything, is when you do L2, the first flick move is B. So you want that to be on the top layer. I'm still writing it as B because I like to have the cross at the bottom. But yeah, you do a flick move like this and hold the cube like this, even though the cross is way over here. So yeah, we have L2B, and then next is R prime F, which seems like it's simple, except you're in this grip. So instead of doing R prime F simply like this, he does R prime F. Using ring finger for F and B moves is extremely underrated. I have a whole video about that, but yeah, that's extremely important for reducing regrips during the cross. Otherwise, your cross turn speed will be horrendous. And the best part is he's now in this grip, which is perfect. D prime, and then these two require your thumb to be on top in the grip to do this. And then orange and blue are just set up. And when you insert it, red and blue set up. Okay, let's take it back for a moment. I lied. That's not actually exactly what he did. We're back to this grip moment. When you're gonna insert orange and blue and just get 2 free pairs, like everyone would have done it that way at this point. But for some reason, he did L and then U2 and inserted blue from this side, which is just an extra U2 for no benefit, because watch this. He gets this, and I'm guessing, I don't know, maybe he was just tracking this and didn't see orange blue, so he just tracked this and was like, oh, that's going to be a free pair afterwards if I solve it like this, without realizing that just the normal way of solving it would have given him 2 free pairs anyway. So yeah, this is a free pair but with a rotation. So on top of the solution I showed, his solution has an extra U2 and a rotation at this point. And it doesn't even give another free pair, so that's like an extra 4 moves or something. But anyway, I'm just glad there were not going to be any regrets on this solve because it ended up being amazing, but it could have been better. Okay, this is a lucky free pair at the end. And then he got this OLL, which in my opinion is like one of the worst case scenarios because this is an OLL that's super easy to lock up on in a high pressure situation. It's not that difficult, but the way you have to coordinate the finger tricks, like right here, after this U move, you have to do an F move. And it's really tough because if you do the F move like this, then during the U move, if you try to corner cut that, then you're doing a reverse corner cut and you can easily just push the cube back in the other direction, which is the worst possible thing that can happen. So he does the F move like this, which is pretty much like almost just as difficult because your right index finger was just doing a move. And that's the move that he locked up on if you watch it in slow-mo. And then if that's not bad enough, there's no fast way to do the ending from this grip. Like you can do this, or you can like undo your grip. Anyway, it's just such a tough OLL to get at that time, but this PLL is just a dream come true. If I was on the last solve of potentially a world record average and had to not choke a PLL, it would definitely be a J Perm. So congratulations to YiHeng Wang for this amazing 3x3 average, and also congrats for completely ending 2x2 as an event.